Good evening and welcome to Slow Motion Broadcasting and our coverage of the American Muscle Series Season 8, Race 4 at Road Atlanta. It is going to be a crazy one tonight, ladies and gentlemen. The American Muscle Series so far has a clean record at Road Atlanta for clean starts, but this season has proven to be exceptionally unclean on the starts. So we'll see how the cars are able to, or how the drivers are able to tackle the opening laps here at a very tricky track. Andre, that track temperature's high in Road Atlanta, man. It's just one of those tracks that seems to bring out the demons in people. What do you expect to see tonight?
I expect to see exactly what we just saw on camera. You were talking about the high temperatures, and then we saw somebody go into a four-wheel slide into the chicane, which is going to happen a lot. This track has so much elevation change that is going to unsettle these cars. The heat is not helping. Like you said, we've got a clean track record here, but the conditions tonight being exceptionally difficult, it's going to be something to watch. I love this track. I love the downhill S's. I love the entry into the chicane. I love that final turn into the start-finish line straight. It's just a phenomenal track, and I'm really excited for this one.
Absolutely. We should have an exciting race here tonight. Andre Grandbouche once again joining me in the booth, and not to forget Josh Wilkie in the production trailer on the buttons and knobs. And we're going to take a quick look at the points. We finally did it. We finally got the points to sort out right and to be able to show them to you. We're going to start with the Pro Division. Jack Sanchez, your defending champion, with a sizable lead over P2 in the form of Jay Bass. Luke Sudengay in the top three right now for that division. Brandon Brush in fourth, and Taco Phil Keck tied for fourth with Brandon Brush. That'll be your top five drivers in the Pro Division. And then we jump over to the Challenger Division, where we're going to see quite a battle forming there. And who is it leading the way? Cam DeDecker. But guess what? Cam DeDecker noticeably absent tonight. And guess what? He's having a baby. Him and his wife are at the hospital right now. Cam, y'all are watching. Randall is an excellent name for a child, so feel free to use that one. But he's leading the way right now with 138 points over Ryan Campbell, who has 125. Charlie Hosey, I know Andre has been cheering for him for a couple seasons now, is in third place with 108. Matt Thompson in fourth place and knocking on the back door, tied for fifth place. Jeff Andrus and Brandon Smith both on 100 points. So good challenge, a good Challenger Division show out so far. And it's a really tight race on the points for the points. And we're going to jump over to the much smaller amateur division. We haven't had a lot of turnout from the amateurs this season, but Dave Blair currently leading the way over Tom Wint and Freddie Weaver. Scott Brooks is in fourth. Sean Johnson is going to round out your top five in that division. And there's still a lot to play for. These drivers still have two drop weeks that are going to be coming their way. They're not calculated in quite yet. We'll get to that point later in the season, but it could really shake up these point standings. Right now, some good points battles going on even early in the season. We are 25% of the way through the season. We're watching the cars qualify right now. Still waiting for some times to come in to see who's leading the way. And we're going to try to find a driver to go on board with. But right now, it looks like Luis Henriquez on the provisional pole with a 34.205. Pretty quick lap, but I suspect they're probably going to get into the 33s here pretty soon.
Absolutely. Also, funny to note, the first race of the year, Luis Henriquez told us, I don't know if I'm going to be there every week. I'm not really going to be a contender for the points, and I don't think he's missed a week yet. So he's here again. He's fast again, as to be expected. Provisional pole was Wire right behind him. And like you said, that 133 bracket, definitely possible. There is some names that have not posted a time yet that I would expect to be pretty quick, but we'll see. David Fench actually jumps to the pole only to immediately be dethroned by Sudengay, and then Matt Malone dethrones him with a 133.8. So there's that 133 bracket there, Randall, and it is Mr. Malone at the top of the byline.
And we are on board now with Dave Blair as he's making his way through the treacherous turn 3. This part of the track will become an absolute parking lot on the start. It's going to be difficult to wind your way through there. It's difficult to wind your way through there single file or even just by yourself, as now he's struggling through the S's on the run up to turn 5. And this is a very tricky corner to get right. You want to get a little bit of the curb or a lot bit of the curb. You don't want the middle bit of the curb, or it will send you flying. And he's going to bring the car over to the left-hand side of the track to open up the entry to turn 6. Actually, sorry, turn 7. That little kink is counted as turn 6. Then into turn 8. And this is the most important corner on the track, because the sooner you get the throttle down, the better. You're going to carry that momentum all the way down this notch straightaway, and it's going to take you all the way to the chicane of turn 10. And you see, the track is not straight here, but they are able to go full throttle this entire time. This is a place where the slipstream is going to have a huge effect, and we might see some drivers go alongside, maybe even 3 wide into this very tight chicane of turn 10. You want to run a lot of these curbs, but you don't want to unsettle the car too much, and you see a big bounce there. It's really hard to wrangle. Come all the way out there to that exit curb, and then you want to come over that blind hill crest, bring the car as far outside as possible to open up the entry to the last corner. That way you don't have to lift, and then the start finish line is right after that last corner. So if you get it all right, it's a very fast lap time for you, and we'll see how Dave Blair was able to do with that lap time. And I'm not seeing him jump out here, so not the fastest, but Dave Blair, not always the best qualifier. So it looks like that was good for 23rd, which is actually the amateur pole provisionally, so a really good time for Dave Blair. He's not always the fastest qualifier, but he is always there in the race, at the end of the race. We see a few drivers now practicing their standing starts. They do have 10 minutes to complete 3 flying laps. And with a 1.5-minute lap time, that's going to give them a good minute and a half, or as we're seeing, 2.5 minutes for some of these drivers to practice their standing starts, maybe get another stab at that pit entry. Andre, tonight, what is your key to success here at Road Atlanta as we watch Sean Johnson go for a bit of a wild ride? I think we've lost Andre, so his key to success is silence. That means focus.
Yes, you need to be focused. My push-to-talk was not working. No, the key is going to be spatial awareness. This is a very narrow track, not a lot of paved runoff. It's just a lot of grass, and iRacing, you get into the grass, it can really pull you for a loop and really pull you right off that racing surface. So when you got 40-plus Mustangs on the track and you got all of that grass, very little runoff, and concrete barriers. I mean, look at this. Everywhere you look, there is concrete barriers. They're not going to be as forgiving as tire barriers. So just make sure you know where everybody is. Make sure you don't get shoved off the track. Make sure you don't get the chrome horn put to you. And if you can keep track of everybody, you're going to be doing well.
I've raced in a fair share of Petite Le Mans races here in the sim, and in normal official series, on also league races, even here in the Mustang. And I can tell you that the most important thing here is survival. Don't let that temper get to you, because this track, I don't know, it just seems to bring out the worst in everybody.
Well, and you can understand why. It's a stressful track to drive. When you come here, you look at the sections of this track, like the S's, like the entrance to the chicane. It's stressful just to make laps, and then you have everybody else around you. It gets even worse, and that stress definitely breeds anger. And you get a little bit of road rage at a track like this. It is fun, but it's a challenge, and it's not a Sunday drive like some of these tracks where the main competition is going to be the other cars. The main competition is going to be, how good can I be? What kind of lap times can I turn? And speaking of lap times, Jack Sanchez must have heard us talking crap about his qualifying, because he's on the pole right now with 1:33.6, and that is an entire 10th up on Luis Henriquez, and 3/10 up on Matt Malone's qualifying time. So it is a great lap out of Sanchez. I think this track kind of suits him. He's always been good at the tracks that are a little bit trickier, a little bit harder to drive. So we'll see how he can do tonight. But among the Challenger division, Jeff Schnackle is going to be the first driver as far as that qualifying is concerned. He's P11. As qualifying does come to a conclusion, we will have the rest of the running order momentarily. But yeah, Jack Sanchez on pole for the first time this year.
Yeah, and the rest of the usual suspects there at the top of the leaderboard, just waiting for the official results to come in so we can get that starting grid for you. And Jack Sanchez, as we mentioned, on the pole position with a 1:33.673 on second. In second position, starting alongside him on the front row is Luis Henriquez. Matt Malone going to come off third. Fabian Zweyer in fourth. David Finch in fifth. Luke Sudengay in sixth. Andrew Bailing in seventh. Taylor Belant in eighth. Neil Kemp ninth. Dave Moore in 10th.
And looking outside of the top 10, we've got Jeff Schnackle going to be P11, first among the challengers. Then you got Jay Bast, P12. 13th is going to belong to Levi Powell. Kevin Buckles going to be 14th. Look at 15th, you're going to find Brandon Brush. P16 goes to Ed Sanchinelli. Evan Hubchak, 17th. 18th, Matt Thompson. Running out your top 20 is going to be Matt Best and Dan Ott.
21st, Andy Smith, with 22nd being Jay Little. Dave Blair going to start on the amateur pole position in 23rd position. 24th, Chuck Labano. 25th, Matthew Gazinda with Ryan Campbell starting alongside him in 26th. Freddie Weaver starting 27th today next to Tom Wendt. Mark Royce going to be 29th. And rounding out your top 30, Aaron That Face Bray.
And outside of the top 30, it is going to be Mike Pico on 31st. 32nd going to be Jeff Andrus. Eli Clough, 33rd. John Casey, 34th. 35th place, Brandon Smith. Samuel Stoner, 36th. P37, Stefan Price. 38th goes to Scott Brooks. Jeff Bernard going to be P39, and 40th goes to Sean Johnson. Running out the rest of the field quickly, Joe, I'm going to make a guess at this. Cicchetti, probably not right. Joe Cicchetti going to be P41. Kenneth Stepp going to be 42nd. Mike Nickum is going to be 43rd. Daniel Gabaldon going to be 44, 45, and 46. Shotgun on the field, Jonathan Burt and Tony Morano.
And Joe Cicchetti is a new driver to the series. This is his first race here, so we'll see how he's able to fare and if he's able to stamp his name on to the American Muscle Series. As we see the drivers now, the cars lined up on the grid, they have about 45 more seconds before we'll see the green flag. So many of these drivers starting back in the final turn or even further back from the final turn. So they're lined up all the way back to the pit entry. So they're going to have quite a bit more distance to travel, and they're going to be arriving to a parking lot in turn 1 and in turn 3. So hopefully these drivers are prepared to go a little bit slowly here at the beginning and try to sort it out as cleanly as possible. Right now, waiting for Jack Sanchez to take to the grid. There he is. He's going to be leading the cars down to turn 1. We're waiting now about another 10 seconds before we'll see the lights come on and then go out. We'll be underway. Barney sitting there poised with the green flag in hand, ready to wave that as soon as we're underway, and just waiting now a couple more seconds. You'll be hearing the engines rev. Lights are going to be going on. There they are. And waiting. Green flag is in the air, and it looks like Luis Enriquez got a really good start there. I don't know if that was possibly a jump start, but he is fired out of a cannon, going to be alongside Jack Sanchez as they make their way down the front straightaway towards turn 1. Sanchez is going to have the inside line, going to be able to make a nice defensive entry into turn 1. Will he be able to carry that momentum? It looks like it. They're going to be fighting side by side for the lead. They're still 2x2 all through the field as they make their climb up the hill to turn 3. Jack Sanchez is going to get that lead back from Luis Enriquez. They're already starting to get single file here at the top of the order, and I have yet to see any smoke, but we haven't seen very many cars. There are 46 of them to make their way through these S's. Right now, Jack Sanchez leading the way, and look at that snake of cars.
Yeah, so far no smoke, and again, it was difficult to see the tail end of the field as they were around the bend. Start-finish line coming right out of a corner, so there's a couple of tracks on the schedule where we've seen that in the past, and it makes the start of this race a lot more difficult for some of those drivers in the back because you have a bit of a checkup and then the straightaway. But single filing out for the most part right now. Jack Sanchez is going to be P1, Luis Enriquez P2, Matt Malone in 3rd. Then you got Fabian Zweier, David Fench. Again, Fench has been having such good runs this year. He's just got to finish one out. Let tonight be the night. Luke Studengay, I did it again. After all these weeks, Luke Studengay going to be P6, and Taylor Ballant had a really good run going last week, but the rain took him out of it. Let's see if he can capitalize and maybe get a little bit of vengeance this week.
No, they won't have to worry about the rain this week as we see a battle here with Jay Little and Ryan Campbell going into turn 10. Jay Little going to keep that position or possibly gain that position away from Ryan Campbell, and they're going to make it through there alive. And I do see a couple cars in the pit lane, so it wasn't a completely clean start, but not a massive incident like we've seen in the past couple races. So far, so good. We do see Neil Kemp taking to the pit lane. I wonder if he's coming in for some repairs. But right now, just seeing him and Matthew Gazinda and Scott Brooks in the pit lane. So I'm going to call this a clean start. I don't know about you, Andre.
About as clean as it could be. It was a very good start. So the track record here at Road Atlanta continues as you can see him right up on that curve, doing a little bit of lawn work. You can see the grass flying. iRacing, again, not too long ago, updated the way that the grass and the dust kicks up onto the track. We got a few beat-up Mustangs, and I'm sure we will have a replay at some point to figure out exactly how that transpired, but that's more than I thought, actually, Randall. That's 5 or 6 beat-up cars.
I think possibly they fell victim to that turn 1 parking lot, or possibly the turn 3 parking lot that I was warning everybody about so much. The number of caved-in front ends suggests that maybe there was a big backup, and I wouldn't be shocked to see that some of the Mustangs towards the rear of the field have a lot of rear end damage to complement those drivers, as we see Taylor Blant here looking to the inside of Jeff Schnackle going into turn 10. Pretty textbook move here, but he's not completely clear as they make their way through the chicane. He does get the position through the second turn and going to easily cover off Jeff. So Jeff's now going to have a little bit of ground to make up, and these guys run on the ragged edge through that last corner. They come all the way off onto that exit curbing. It's amazing that they are able to make it through their lap after lap, but there's a couple of the best of them doing it right there.
Absolutely, some of the best in the field, but we do have some replays lined up. Let's try to decipher what exactly happened here, Randall, because this left us with more wrecked Mustangs than I was expecting, looking at the scoring and timing, but coming down into what you call the parking lot, just spatial awareness issue, what did I say? And then right back into the field. They did not get on the brake pedal. Oh no.
So it looks like Matthew Gazinda and Freddie Weaver and Mike Pico coming together there, and then Matthew Gazinda not able to find that brake pedal very hard. His brake lights were on there, so I'm not sure exactly what happened. So he was on the brake, but the tires still rolling a lot, or maybe he was just sliding, because they were going pretty fast, and it's much later in the lap than you would expect to see a lap 1 incident. And then we're going to see, is this Scott Brooks having some problems? This is the exit of turn 5, and I suspect that he might have got caught up in this incident after the fact. You can see there's a bunch of checking up going on ahead, some stricken cars, a couple drivers trying to get out of the way. He comes to a stop, and that's just all it was. He just came to a stop. Sometimes our software detects that as a crash. Come back to live pictures, so what a sight. Matt Malone up the inside, and contact with Jack Sanchez, and what a save. Matt Malone keeps that car going in the right direction. Oh my God.
How did he do that? How on earth did he do that? That was a 4-wheel skid through the grass. That is some Dale Earnhardt maneuvering if I have ever seen it. Matt Malone holding on to that car. He's going to fall back to P2, but not without a fight. He is still on
big
the
checkup.
Randall and Sanchez. There is contact. That checkup was from contact between our leaders. I don't think they're liking each other very much right now, Randall.
The gloves have come off. We're only 5 minutes into this race, and it is kicking off at the front of the pack. I have never seen a maneuver like that. We're going to try to get a replay. This was afterwards, and this is them coming through turn 1, and they are absolutely elbows out at this point. This is an early point in the race to be fighting like this, but Matt Malone, I think, maybe seeing a little bit of red here. We're going to get another view. This is them coming down the back straightaway, so this is when it would have all kicked off while we were looking at other replays. Matt Malone in a good position to slipstream his way past Jack Sanchez, and then ends up getting passed by Luis Enriquez. Starts the fight back against Luis. Luis gets a good run on Jack, has to back out. Then they go too wide, and there's some contact there. It looks like maybe a healthy dose of netcode involved as well. But what an absolute mad lad, Matt Malone, with that massive save, and he's still fighting for the win.
Yeah, I think Jack was trying to apex that corner. He did not expect Malone to be there. And man, oh man, I just cannot believe he held onto that thing, avoided the concrete barrier, got back up on the track, currently running at P2. What a maneuver. Again, you said he's seeing red. I can't say I blame him, but you got to think, you've got 24 minutes left in this race. You can't get too aggressive now. You can't throw it away over a little bit of road rage this early. But like you said as well, this track does bring worst out in people sometimes. So you never know, but this is a battle developing right here, riding on board with Jeff Schnackle. He's got Andrew Bailing and Jay Bass and Taylor Ballant all in a group right in front of him. So a lot of positions to potentially pick up. He is currently the challenger leader, but don't look too far back on that pylon, because there is Levi Powell only about a second back, and that would be for the challenger leads. 2 positions separating them currently. Among the amateurs, Dave Blair in the 22nd position is leading that division. He's got about three positions over Tom Wendt in 25th. Tom Wendt having some good runs over the last few weeks, been doing pretty decent in that number 228, so we'll see if he can continue that momentum. But a lot of battles all over the track. We are getting a little bit separated, partially thanks to the incidents we've had and partially just due to how slick this track is. Randall, it is 122 on the blacktop. That is obscene.
That is 50 degrees Celsius, and it is very, very hot. These tires are extremely thin on this car. It's almost like driving on pizza cutters. It's going to be super easy to overheat them. The front drivers almost certainly overheated their tires and are going to need a lap or two for them to come down into a working range. But look at that track temperature. It is absolutely frying as we see Jack Sanchez going defensive into turn one. Malone looking to the outside, maybe going to get a crossover, try to get up to the inside for turn three. He's right there on Jack's rear bumper right now, happy to push him. So not going to make a move into turn three. This is like the lead pack here we got a breakaway of 5 cars. It's calmed down a little bit after that big scrum, and then look at this gaggle of cars coming behind them. Yeah,
they are coming on strong here, gaining a lot of ground, and it's just one of the situations here where you got to be patient. The downhill S's and then the uphill here, not the best place to try to overtake, so just fall in line, wait for the opportunity to present itself, then make your move. But the patience has been, well, we've had more patience than Long Beach, but less than last week. So somewhere in the middle, I would say, for Road Atlanta. As these drivers bumper to bumper, look at Mr. Schnackle there, giving him a little bit of a shot, and then right behind David Moore, rear end stepped out on him a little bit. He got shoved out of line. I don't think he's going to be able to get back in line because that door closed immediately. He's got a good run down this straightaway. He does have the preferred position going into the corner here, but again, when everybody's single file, you're the odd duck out. That is not a comfortable position to be in.
No, he'll get a big dose of the slipstream as they come up to the entry to turn him in, but he'll have the outside line. It looks like Schnackle maybe backed out a little bit to make sure they went through that single file. So Schnackle playing the long game here early doors, not a bad idea, but he's going to come right back on Dave Moore. Going to be up the inside for the final corner, so maybe just trying to lull Dave Moore to sleep. And it's the old guy's nap time. Jeff Schnackle gets that spot back immediately. It looks like Evan Hubchak is involved in a fight back there with, is that Brandon Brush? That he's too wide with as they go into turn one. So lots of action here in the mid. I don't even want to call this the midfield. There's 46 drivers out here. This is still the top third. So we still have a lot of action going on up and down the leaderboard. And this is exactly what you expect to see out of a Road Atlanta race. All traffic, all the time, nonstop. It's completely high stress. These drivers are going to be going for 40 minutes, and it's not going to be not a single moment to let up. Even the pit entry here is so difficult that coming into the pits doesn't seem like a break.
No, there is not a moment to breathe at a track like Road Atlanta, and you can see right here, they had just single filed out, and now Kevin Buckle's going to send it down the inside. They're going to be too wide once again, the 48 versus the 68 of Brandon Brush, and they're not going to sort it out in this corner either. They're going to stay side by side with more competition right behind him. Matt Best, the best Matt, going to be right on the bumper, applying the pressure. So it's like, in this situation, Randall, even if you want to take it easy, even if you're saying, look, I don't want to fight this guy for position, it's early in the race, I want to be patient, you can't. Because there's drivers right behind you that aren't going to cut you any slack. They're going to be right on your bumper. They're forcing you to run at maximum pace. Otherwise, you're just going to get freight trained. It is such a stressful track, and it's really showing in the way that they're driving. But this driver right here, Mark Royce, he's got a little bit of open road ahead of him, not so much behind, but one of the few drivers that can say he's not in an absolute hornet's nest.
Yeah, a little bit, be able to breathe a little bit easier. He does have Jay Little on his rear bumper and Samuel Stoner lurking back there as well. This is a nice little, Dave Blair, not Samuel Stoner. This is a nice little 3-car group. These guys can work together, set some nice clean laps, get some benefits of slipstream. Here we see one driver coming out of the pits. That's John Casey, who was kind of caught up in that initial incident on lap 1, got some repairs, rejoins the race. So these drivers, they're not necessarily looking to be the raciest. They're looking to secure a good finish. So they're probably playing the long game, doing a bit of fuel saving. And don't look now, we've had a change for the lead and a change back. They are fighting again for the lead of this race. Yeah,
this battle is not going anywhere. How many times If I had to take a shot every time we had a battle between Jack Sanchez, Matt Malone, and Luis Enriquez this season, I would be dead. These three, it's always them up front, always battling, and they're so close in pace that it's a battle that seems to always last the entire race. The only thing that can separate these guys is a wreck or pit road. And even when they get separated during a pit sequence, generally, they find each other again. They close the gap, they get back together. Going back to scenes earlier when they were too wide here, Matt Malone on the inside, now the outside into this next corner. Jack Sanchez able to hold on, just barely, a little bit of counter steer in that Mustang, but single files back out to the lead. There was a driver, it looked like, oh, go ahead.
Do not sleep on the number 55 car, Fabian Zweyer. That dude is always quick, and he's always there at the end of the race. I've seen Fabian steal some finishes that you wouldn't have expected out of him just because he's able to be there at the end. So he is in a prime position to be doing some fuel saving and to be challenging for the win of this race at the end. Also, don't count out David Finch either. He's not had the best season so far, but he is in a prime position in this top 5 breakaway, and he will be licking his chops, finally ready to get a really good finish under his belt. And he's looking to push it, Fabian, out of this corner and down the straightaway. And this I don't think this group is going to break up. I think you're right. The only thing that's going to separate them is a wreck or possibly pit strategy.
And again, even if pit strategy does separate them, they tend to find each other. They'll get back to each other, and this whole pack of cars is going to be hungry. Obviously, Luis Enriquez, Matt Malone, Jack Sanchez, they're no strangers to victory lane, but Fabian Zweyer, David Finch, they're not winning quite as often. I'm not sure if David Finch has a league win. I'm not a statistics expert, but we do know that those drivers at the tail end of this lead pack, they are going to be hungrier than ever. And if they're still there, if that pack is still that tight by the end of this race, you can expect them to get extremely aggressive, and you can't blame them. They got a great opportunity in sight. They got to take advantage of it. Following along now with Dan Ott in that associated Mustang. He's going to come down the hill into the chicane. Not entirely certain which position. 25th he is. 26th going to be Samuel Stoner behind him. This little mini pack of cars single filing under the bridge down into the right-hander before the start-finish line. Now this corner is a little deceiving, Randall. It's been a while since I've driven this track on anything, but I remember because of the elevation, because of that wall, and because of the slight double turn, there's a little bit of a kink before the corner. It's a little bit deceiving and really hard to judge, especially if you got traffic right in front of you. Was a car off track there? He was on pit road not too long ago. But yeah, just...
It is a very tricky corner, and you got to absolutely use every bit of track in order to be fast through there. And if you eat too much of that curb, you can have a lot of issues coming off the corner and end up in the grass. We saw Brandon Smith there plowing the field in turn 1. He was able to get back on track. Jack Sanchez is still leading the way here. This 5-car group is still formed up, and then a nice little gap back to 6th place. Right now, they're seeming pretty tame here. We are just past 15 minutes into this race. The pit window is open. They do have a pretty large pit window here. They will need to stop for fuel, take about 2.5 gallons of fuel. We are projecting a 26 lap race here. The pit strategy could change that, but right now my calculator is showing 25.35 laps in this race. They do still need to come down the pit lane, but I'm pretty sure we're going to get a 26th lap out of this group. They will be fighting the whole time, and look at that camera view. That is an amazing shot coming through that final corner that we were just talking about. Kevin Buchholz is having a pretty decent race here. We saw him make a move into the turn 7 a couple laps ago, and he's kind of been stationary since then, but he's looking nice and quick, and he's got Evan Hubchak in front of him. Evan's always a pretty quick driver. Jeff Schnackel, the lone challenger up here in the top 15, with the exception of Levi Powell. Levi kind of hanging on the tail end of this group, maybe doing some fuel saving, maybe just biding his time and trying to play the long game. And that's certainly something you can do here once it spreads out. But early doors, you're right. You have to be absolutely on it, because if you try to back off any of the people behind you are going to be there to pounce. But right now, as you come into the middle section of this race, Andre, what are you thinking about here as far as pit strategy? Possibly when you're going to come in, the overcut, the undercut. How does that all play out in your mind? I think we lost Andre's push to talk button. Please, F's in chat for Andre's push to talk button. I think he's having some issues with it.
There we go. I need to rebind this apparently. So what I'm thinking about right now isn't so much undercut versus overcut, because like so many races this season, tire wear has not really played too much of an effect. I'm looking at the lap times right now. They're not far off pole time. Jack Sanchez last time around was a 1:33.8. This time it was a 1:34.2. So tires, not so much of an issue. What I want is clean track. So basically, I'm going to look at the competition, and if I see the pit windows open and nobody else has come down pit road, and I know that I'm likely to cycle out by myself, then that is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to come down pit road, hopefully come out some clear track, and I'm going to click off as many basically qualifying laps as I can before everybody else pits and they cycle out around me and the traffic comes back. But just getting that clear track is going to be hugely important.
Right now, the fastest lap of the race set by your leader, Jack Sanchez, with a 1:33.897, which is a little odd to see at a track like this. Normally, second, third, or fourth is going to have that quick lap time just because of how much the slipstream benefits you going down the back straightaway. But they are bunched up right now, and I would not be surprised if we see a move out of Matt Malone here coming into turn 10. Right now, he's holding station, but as they get closer to that braking zone, you're going to watch that Mustang creep forward from benefiting from that slipstream. We'll see if he decides to pop out here or if he's just going to push. And actually, we're just going to see a push out of him. So they're pushing right now, not looking at super racy, just trying to click off some laps. Once they come into the pit lane, though, and they start to reform after everybody's made their pit stops for fuel, look out, the fireworks will start once again. And still got 5 cars in this lead pack. Dave Finch there with a little bit of a not great run out of turn 10. He's fallen off a little bit. He'll be able to catch back up to these drivers pretty easily here, but he does need to get back up there because it's pretty easy to lose the slipstream. Once you get more than about a second out, you don't really get much effect of it. And look at who's coming. Is that the 21 car of Taylor Ballant, who's up to 6th place now. He didn't have the best start, but he started carving his way through the top 10 pretty quickly. He's up to 6th position, the leader of the second pack, right there in front of Jay Bass, looking to close that gap up to David Finch. It's 4.3 seconds right now. We'll keep an eye on it to see if it gets any smaller. But Taylor Ballant right now on a tear.
Yeah, again, he had a really good run going last week, and then when the rain came in, it caught him off guard and really took him out of the running for it, but he had a good points day lined up at the time. So he's finding speed. He's getting used to this Mustang and definitely seeing some improvement. But man, this battle right here, I could tell Matt Malone held back a little bit there. He got a better entry, and he had to really step on that brake pedal to keep from getting into the rear end of Jack Sanchez. I think this track is really just vibing with these two leaders. This is a track these guys are great at. You can't count out Henriquez either. His blazing start. I would have bet money that start for Luis Henriquez was a jump start. We were going to see him come down pit road for the penalty, but no, it was just perfectly timed. I believe it happened in F1 one time where a driver for Ferrari got a start so good that the stewards and the commentators were convinced he had jumped it. They had to go to the slow-mo cameras. It took them a few laps to sort it out. Very similar thing there, because that was probably the best start I've seen in quite some time out of anybody. But this right here, how about some bump drafting, Randall? Don't see that often in Mustangs.
Neil Kemp in 23rd. We did see him drive down pit lane. I'm not sure if he stopped in his box. I suspect that Neil Kemp, he qualified in the top 10. I think that maybe he did get a jump start penalty and had to come down pit lane and serve a drive-through because of that. So right now, sitting back in 23rd, Neil is way faster than where he's showing on the leaderboard right now, behind our favorite name, Dejano 2. We see Jay Little is in the pit lane right now, coming in, probably the first one to come in for normal service, Jay Little. We're going to start seeing some more traffic on there as laps go by. We are just past the halfway point, a minute and a half past the halfway point. So pit road is going to become busy very quickly, and it's the pit entry here, treacherous, especially if you're trying to come in behind somebody else. And then pit exit, equally treacherous. You're coming out right into traffic on the uphill run to turn 3. It is a dodgy proposition at the best of times. And when you come back out in the traffic, oof, it is spooky.
Yeah, it's not fun. As we go on board, you'll get a good example of exactly what the drivers are seeing. Now, this is actually better than what the drivers are seeing because this camera is a little bit above eye level, and even still, just a bit of a blind shot uphill. Not a great situation. If this was a public roadway in my county, I would file a complaint to whoever planned it out, but it's a racetrack, so Safety on iRacing, not too big of a concern. But here we go. A little bit of a move there from that tan machine.
Evan Buckholz making another move there over on Evan Hubchak, able to get up to his way up to 13th. He kind of was static there for a while. We're seeing some of the leaders come into the pit lane. Luis Enriquez in the pit lane. Is that Matt Malone in the pit lane? Yes, and David Finch. So 3 of the top 5 are coming in. Jack Sanchez has not come into pit. So these 3 drivers thinking the undercut might be more powerful. And especially since there's 3 of them, they might have a good thing going here.
Yeah, they absolutely do. If they can cycle out with just them, that is going to be a huge benefit. And look at this. Matt Malone going to beat Henriquez out of pit road. David Finch right with him. There was a purple Mustang there. They got on the brakes and let David Finch go. Although David Finch did have to check up a little bit. So we'll see exactly how he cycles out. Now, interesting thing to note here. Those tires have just cooled down a little bit. We put a bit of a heat cycle on them. And as they come back onto the track, it has gotten even warmer. Randall, 123.8 degrees now, so almost 2 degrees hotter than it was prior. This is some of the highest track temp I've seen in this league ever. And now they're going to be coming out of pit road on these tires that have had a cycle on them. That's going to be tough.
Yeah, hopefully they've cooled down a little bit. They'll find a little bit of extra grip in them. They're going to have a bit more weight in the car than they just had because of the refuel, but not enough to really affect these cars. We do see one car back there on jack stands. As we watch Tom Wendt come out of pit lane. I'm not exactly sure who that was. Maybe Sean Johnson. They're taking tires. And yeah, it looks like the car of Sean Johnson was up on jack stands. So maybe he decided to take 2 tires. We're going to see the leaders continue to circulate. They will be coming into pit lane. We're still waiting on Jack Sanchez and Fabian Zweyer to come into the pits, and they are not in quite yet. I haven't seen them come around the final corner, but pit road very, very busy right now. Taylor Blant, Jeff Schnackel both on a pit lane. Both those drivers having really good races so far, so they're ready to translate this. And there we go, another driver going up for left-hand side tires. It's pretty surprising to see Jeff Schnackel taking tires, Taylor Blant not taking tires. This is going to cost Schnackel a lot of time on his pit stop, and it looks like he's going to maybe not. It only took him about 3 seconds longer, so it may be worth it for him. He's going to have quite a tricky warm-up period here. Neil Kemp on pit lane for regular service this time. We'll see how long he's in the box. Right now, everybody stopped 14 to 17 seconds, somewhere in that neighborhood. So the faster drivers will probably stop for a less amount of time than the slower drivers. Matt Malone would stop for 13.3 seconds. We'll see when the leaders come in, how long they're stopped for, and that's going to really probably decide how this top 5 shakes itself out. Right now, Jack Sanchez leading over Fabian Zweyer. Are they going to come in the pit lane this time? No, they're going to continue circulating. So still some more fuel left in those cars. There is just over 14 and a half minutes left. So the other group of the top 5 coming in did pit rather early. So Jack Sanchez and Fabian Zweyer probably have about another 4 or 5 minutes of fuel left in that car. Going to be able to get 2 or 3 more laps as we see Dave Moore take that tricky pit entry. Pit lane here still pretty busy. Jay Bass, Dave Moore, Luke Sudengay all in the pit lane right now. Evan Hubchak coming into pit lane, and who's that ahead of him? Is that Jonathan Burt trying to pull out of the pit lane? That's the Mustang we saw stopped as the lead group was coming out, so I think he was just trying to let them by, and now he is coming out of pit lane. I think maybe he just reset there from the pit lane exit and is now actually making his way out of pit lane back on the track in 36th position as we see that provisional leaders, possibly Matt Malone and Luis Enriquez, go by. It is a busy place here on pit lane, Andre.
Yeah, it is. And going back to the left side tires, it kind of makes sense. If you look at this track map, it's a little bit similar to Watkins Glen in that it's majority right-hand corners. Some of the right-hander is going to be really high speed, such as the final corner of the track. So if you can get fresh left-hand tires, you might actually get a little bit of an advantage now. The extra 3 seconds that we saw it takes roughly to get those tires on there. Can you make up that 3 seconds within the last half of this race? That remains to be seen if it makes you any faster. Looking at lap times, though, Jack Sanchez last time around 1:34.0. His
Sanchez
best lap of the race. Go.
Sorry, go ahead, Andre.
I was going to say his best lap of the race is a 1:33.9, or 1:33.897 to be exact. But essentially, he's lost a tenth off of his lap time on these tires. I can't imagine taking tires is going to be faster, but sometimes you got to try something different.
Jack Sanchez, Andrew Bailing, both in the pit lane. Fabian Zweyer staying out for another lap. He's not going to have slipstream, but that tells me that he's been saving fuel. So if he's able to get a decent lap in here, maybe get some slipstream off of some lapped cars and not interfere with him too much in the form of traffic, he might be in a good position here to take a really short stop and come back out in the lead. We're going to keep an eye here. Here comes Matt Malone through turn 1 now as Jack Sanchez is exiting the pits. Very exciting. Who's going to win the race to turn 3? It looks like Jack Sanchez is going to get this, and he's going to have 2 lap cars between him and Matt Malone. So everything coming up spades for Sanchez right now. Matt Malone eager to get through this traffic. They're working with him a little bit as Stefan Price gets out of the way. Now he's got the Jeff Bernard to deal with, the geriatric racer from down under, and they're going to go 2 wide through the S's. Matt Malone's going to get by the time they get through turn 5. Luis Enriquez not as lucky. He's going to run pretty wide and take an adventurous route through the gravel, manages to keep it pointed in the right direction. And now Matt Malone has a 1.1 second gap to make up. Luis Enriquez has another equally sized gap to make up. And then David Finch is back there. He's fallen off this pair. He's got to get around these 2 lap cars and then try to get that gap closed back up. But I think he's going to see these 3 in front of him drive away into the distance. So right now, David Finch, the loser in the pit strategy, he's lost a lot of time, and he's going to have to really hustle if he wants to get back into the slipstream.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. He's got to get around 2 lap cars, and in the meantime, these leaders not having really any traffic to deal with, they are going to get a bit of an advantage and definitely be outside of the slipstream range. So going to be tough for David Finch, but these 3 drivers up front, again, separated by only about a second from first to second to third. Actually, it would be second, third, and fourth because our current leader is on pit road. They're going to go by him right now as he is on his way out. He'll cycle out just behind these drivers. Now, Fabian was a part of this lead pack. He may actually cycle into the lead. Oh my goodness, just barely. Jack Sanchez is going to take it, but he has gained so much time on this cycle, Randall. Remember, he was 4th, now P2.
He's P2. He was stopped for 13.3 seconds as well. Jack Sanchez stopped for 13.6 seconds. So apparently Jack Sanchez was able to attack the pit entry way more than these other drivers because he was able to make it up on pit entry, not in the stop time. He was the slowest out of the top 3. Luis Enriquez with a 13.7. Dave Finch with a 13 flat, nearly a 13.1. So he had the quick pit stop, but he was not able to stay in contact. So you have to think maybe he was a little bit more cautious coming into the pit entry where these other drivers were able to attack it a lot more. And that seems to be the biggest difference. A couple tenths in your stop time, not so much of a difference, but if you gain half a second to a second on that pit entry, that could be all the difference in the world.
It absolutely can. With a pit road entry and exit that is as tricky as this one, there's a lot of time to be gained or lost, depending on how aggressive you want to get with it. And, well, we know Jack Sanchez is not afraid to be aggressive. So, like you said, he really attacked it, gained a lot of time. Now, this driver back here did get around the lap traffic. David Finch has open road ahead of him. But that open road is not a good sign because it means the leaders have gotten away. And he's got a lot of ground to make up. He's got a long way to go and a short time to get there. He's going to have to get Reynolds in that car because he's got about 3 seconds to make up, about 10 minutes of the race remaining. Not looking too good for getting for these leaders, but if he stays where he is, that's a top 5 position. Great points there.
So we may actually be turning only 25 laps here. I'm seeing 25.02 on my calculator. That should be within the range to throw the checkered flag on the after the completion of the 25th lap. Unless they pick up the pace, and then we could see a 26th lap. I bet you everybody's banking on it being 25 laps, however, given how tight the pit lane times were. Jack Sanchez leading the way. Fabian Zweyer all over him, and then Matt Malone is looking pretty racy right now. He's right there on the rear bumper of Zweyer. Luis Enriquez hanging out back there in 4th. He's not out of this race. And don't count Dave Finch out completely yet. He's quite a ways back from the slipstream, but if this lead pack starts fighting heavily, he'll be right there ready to be opportunistic, maybe get a couple positions, maybe challenge for the win. Right now they're keeping it pretty tame. They're dealing with some lap traffic. Sanchez leading the way. Zweyer lined up on the inside. He's dealing with that lap traffic car. I bet we'll see him follow the line, but that's going to put Matt Malone lined up to the inside and not going to be super opportunistic, not going to go for that move. Luis able to make his way around Sean Johnson, so he's not affected by the lap traffic coming through turn 10 as much as he would have been if he had to wait for it but that did form a little bit of a gap. So Luis Enriquez is about 1 second off Malone. He's going to have to get on the button to make sure he closes this gap up so that by the time they get back to the back straightaway, he's within range. But this race up front looking pretty tame right now. 7.5 minutes, just north of 7.5 minutes, serving lap 21 out of what we're going to call 25. This is the calm before the storm, folks. This race is going to heat up any time now.
It's the very brief moment of calm that we've had, because it's not been very calm leading up to this, and I doubt it'll be calm for the end. But right after this pit sequence, everybody got separated a little bit. We got kind of taken apart, and that gave them a little bit of breathing room, and it's calmed them down. But this lead pack is not separated by much. It's not going to take much for Zwire to catch up to Jack, and of course Matt Malone right there in third as well. I believe these drivers will come together less than a second separating them. Luis Enriquez, 1.5 back from the leader. He had the misfortune of catching the lap traffic at a bad place. You saw going into the chicane last lap, he had to take a very narrow entry, which really messed up his exit, which that speed carries all the way down the next straightaway into that right-hander. So lost some time there that he's working on making up, which he is, as you can see on the scoring and timing. These two drivers here, man, that downhill section, it's just something to watch because you can tell those Mustangs are just floating down that hill. Not a whole lot of downforce, not a whole lot of feedback in the wheel, just kind of sliding around the S's. This guy's somehow holding onto it. But as for the other divisions, just want to mention not much has changed. Jeff Schnackle still leading the way for challengers, and as for amateurs, it is going to be Dave Blair in that 26 position. And he has a little bit of an advantage over Tom Wendt, about 13 seconds, so he can really just ride for that amateur and then see what he can wind up here. Here's a battle, though. 3 cars under a blanket, couple of teammates with another driver in between. See what they can do headed into this right-hander.
And Matt Best, this is the deepest he's gotten in a race so far this season. He's been a bit snake bit, hasn't been able to make it through the first lap yet. This is the first time he's done it. He's got a little bit of damage on that car, so it's not been 100% clean, but this is way better performance out of him than we've seen the entire first 3 races of the season. Now he's going to go side by side with Edgar Sanchinelli into turn 3. Not going to be able to get it there. Ed's going to leave a lot of room for him. Not really needed, though. Matt's going to fall back into line behind him. Right now, Jack Sanchez still leading the way. Jeff Schnackle leading the Challenger division. Dave Blair leading the Amateur division. And we're watching this battle for 17th position. Ed Sanchinelli, Matt Best, the best Matt Best, and Matt Thompson all involved here. And we have a Matt Best sandwich. It's Frito Sport all around him.
Never a good feeling when you are the odd one out in a situation where there's teammates all around you, because you know they're not going to cut you a break. They're not going to really focus on battling each other so much as they're going to focus on you. Now for second place, here we go. Matt Malone to the bottom lane of the final corner, gets a good run out. That's going to force Zwire off the track. Loses a little bit of momentum in the grass. That 55 forced to slow down just a bit. He's going to concede the position. And that is Mr. Malone up to P2. So now he's got a little bit of work to do running down Jack Sanchez. He's lost about a second in this battle between the second place cars. And he's got 5 minutes to make that second up. In the meantime, look at Luis Enriquez. He has caught these drivers. They slowed themselves down, battling side by side, and now back in the fray. Here is Enriquez. And Sanchez just opened these 3 drivers continue to battle up through the kitty litter. It is going to be an all-out brawl if they do get there, but man, they cannot focus on battling each other. If you're Matt Malone, Fabian Zwire, Luis Enriquez, you do not want to get side by side. You don't want to mess with each other. Ride in line and try to run this leader down, then make your move, because right now, it'd be very easy to self-destruct.
It'll be extremely easy to self-destruct, and if you see a little glint of metal coming out of the car of Matt Malone, that is Matt Malone, dagger in teeth, trying to track down Jack Sanchez. That gap is 1.1 seconds. He's going to have a vestigial amount of slipstream at this range, but he does manage to close it up a tenth, so he could be within range here at the end of this lap. He does have basically a whole lap to kind of close that gap up in a few of these tighter spots before he'll have another shot at that slipstream coming down the back straightaway. They're coming up to serve a lap 24. It should be two to go this time by. So not seeing the white flag in Barney's hands quite yet, but he is itching to get that thing in the air. Jack Sanchez cannot see it soon enough. He has got a bit of enough of a gap that he feels a little bit comfortable. He's going to be trying to set quality pace times to keep that gap there. It's still sitting at 1.1 seconds, so Malone's going to have to find some speed here before they get back to this back straightaway, or his chances are going to slip away.
Yeah, so looking at lap times last time around, Jack Sanchez ran a 1:33.8, which is about as good as anybody. Now, his best lap of the race has been improved after that sequence.
Hold on to it, Jack!
Whoa, buddy. Just barely holding on to it, but his best lap had improved to a 1:33.5. Not sure exactly when he set that, but either way, he is setting really good lap times. He was sailing off into the sunset, but that moment you just reacted to there, that closed him back in. That gave about 3/10 to Matt Malone. Got him within striking distance, so about a lap and a half remaining. 3 cars trying to run down the leader desperately. Let's see what they can do.
Yeah, they did cost Sanchez a little bit of time there. We'll be really interested to see if they'll be getting the white flag this time. And if they don't, I wonder if anybody's going to be having fuel problems. Matt Malone trying to track him down. It's down to 0.7, 0.6. It's fluctuating there. He's going to be there next lap as long as he can have a nice, clean lap. He's hoping for another mistake out of Sanchez like that, but we could see a battle brewing here at this point in 1 lap's time as they're coming down the hill around to the final corner. We're going to take a look. We see the white flag in the air from Barney, and couldn't see it there. We can get another shot maybe down the straightaway. And so you can't tell. We're going to call the white flag as Matt Malone tries to track down Jack Sanchez in turn 1. Not going to be there quite yet, but that gap's only 0.4 of a second. He is definitely close enough to get the slipstream as they make their way up the hill through turn 3. It looks clean here so far. We're coming up to turn 5. Got to navigate these S's, but this is where Jack Sanchez had a bit of a moment last lap. We'll see if he's able to come through it clean this time. So far, so good, and it doesn't look like he's going to have problems this time around using up all of that track so far as they make the run up to turn 7. And Matt Malone is right there. He's going to have plenty of slipstream. Does he have enough time? He's got to get a good run out of these 2 corners in order to have a chance. We see Fabian Zweyer running a little bit wide. Matt Malone within striking distance coming out of the corner. Down the straightaway they come. This is going to be the last opportunity Matt Malone has to get up to Jack Sanchez and to try to set up a move going into turn 10. Will Jack Sanchez go defensive? Will he leave the inside open? It's hard to say. It's a half a second right now, and he's not closing very quickly. He might be too far back. This could be it, folks. But right now we're watching it. Matt Malone trying to close that gap up, trying to close, and it looks like Sanchez not even really having to defend here. We see a bit of a lockup out of him, but that doesn't really do anything. Maybe that was actually just dirt. Matt Malone going to be there 0.3 of a second back from Jack Sanchez as they make their way down the hill and around the final corner. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be for the checkered flag. No, white flag in the air. White flag in the air. So we're going to have another shot at it. And how is everybody's fuel situation? That's another thing to worry about here as we're going to make the 26th lap. Were they all banking on 25 laps? Are we going to have a repeat of Belle Isle after a couple seasons ago? Dave Finch had to come in for a splash and go, so he's going to win the Thompson Trophy for fuel management this week. And catch your breath. Here it comes, folks.
Look at this, 2nd place, Matt Malone right on the bumper in the downhill S's. He is extremely close. I'm not sure if he knew he was going to have the 2nd lap to attack. I'm not sure if Jack Sanchez knew he was going to have to defend for another lap. It was right on the clock. I mean, it was within a 1/10 of a second that they crossed that line to get the white flag rather than the checkered. And around the corner they go. It is just 1/10 of a second separating 1st and 2nd place. 3rd place and 4th place, Zweyer Henriquez not far behind either. If anything happens, they're waiting in the wings to capitalize. Down this long straightaway, the slipstream not seeming to benefit Matt Malone as much as we would have expected. Just doesn't seem to really gain a whole lot. It is 0.3 of a second now between them as the leader Jack Sanchez got a really good corner exit. Now back down the hill, still using that slipstream as much as he can. Taking the defensive line, Jack Sanchez to the inside, then the outside. That is going to be a big defensive maneuver. To the bumper goes Matt Malone. Does he put it to him? He tries. Sparks fly. 1 last corner remaining. I don't think Matt Malone's going to be able to make the move unless he goes for an absolute deep send. He tries it through the grass, but he is not going to get there in time. Drifting across the line, Sanchez wins. Matt Malone not for a lack of trying, going to be P2. Swire final step on the podium. And this battle right here, look at this. 2 cars side by side to the line. Jay Bass going to beat out Andrew Bailing. What an exciting finish. I got to ask you, Randall, if Matt Malone had made that move through the grass and won, would that have been legal?
Ifs and buts. I don't want to comment on ifs and buts. Jeff Schnackel going to come home with the Challenger victory in 8th place overall, and we're still waiting to see who's going to finish first in the amateur division. Currently, it is Dave Blair in 25th position overall, down a couple spots from where he qualified, but he's going to be pretty happy with this, I bet you, because he's making his way through turn 10 now. He's got a clear windscreen and a clear rear view mirror as he makes his way down the hill, approaching the final corner. Dave Blair going to come across the line in 25th position, and I don't think Dave Finch was alone in having to come in for a splash and go here at the end of the race. I don't think all these drivers were expecting that 26th lap, as we're watching Mike Neekum and Tom Wentz still make their way through turn 10 to finish the race here today, and they're going to be some of the last ones on track now to finish. We're still waiting for them to come across the line. These drivers have all completed the race here. Matt Best comes home 17th. That's going to be a good run for him, considering that he made it more than a lap. He should be pretty happy with a top 20 finish out of 46 cars. Normally you wouldn't think a top 20 finish would be that noteworthy, but when you have 46 Mustangs out here, that is a feat.
It definitely is. When you've got that many cars being around halfway in the field, nothing to really scoff at, especially at a track this tough to navigate. It was tough for everybody, and really a very clean race for Road Atlanta. It seemed to be a little bit of patience and a little bit of courtesy shown among the drivers. And I think now that we're getting into the season a little bit further, I think the early season jitters have kind of started to leave these guys. The patience is getting a little bit better. They're not as anxious behind the wheel to get every little position they can get. Things are calming down, not to give it the commentator's curse for next week, but just a good, clean race. And I mean, Sanchez, Matt Malone, putting on one for the record books. That was such an exciting finish. I don't think there's anything more Malone could have done. Sanchez just ran a good race.
Sanchez had pace all day, started on the pole position, was able to drive away thanks to the help of a little bit of lap traffic as it came out of the pit lane. Talk about timing that perfectly. Here are your official results coming up here in a moment now. Jack Sanchez going to win the race overall, not by much and not from lack of trying out of Matthew Malone. Jack Sanchez wins by almost a quarter second over Matt Malone. Fabian Zweyer in third. Luis Henriquez finishes fourth. Jay Bast going to come home in fifth place. Andrew Bailing in sixth place. Luke Sudengay in seventh position. Jeff Schnackel with the Challenger Division win in eighth place overall. Taylor Ballant, who had a really good race, going to come home in ninth place. Dave Moore finishes in the top 10, rounds out your top 10, and I'll hand it over to you, Andre.
Kevin Buckles is going to be P11. Levi Powell works his way up to 12th. 13th place going to be Ryan Campbell. Brandon Brush, P14. David Finch, 15th. Ed Santinelli is going to be P16. 17th belongs to Matt Best. Matt Thompson going to be P18. Running out the top 20 going to be Andy Smith and Chuck Labana.
21st, Mark Royce, with 22nd being Neil Kemp. Dahan 02 comes home 23rd with Evan Hoopchak in 24th. I suspect that Evan may have had to come in for fuel as well. Dave Blair going to win the amateur division, finishes 25th overall. Daniel Gobaldon is going to come home at 26th with Mike Neekum in 27th. Tom Wendt comes home 28th for the Frito Sport team. Aaron Bray, going to come home at 29th. Sam Stoner rounding out the top 30.
And looking a little bit further back, P31 going to be Sean Johnson. Stefan Price, 32nd. Jeff Bernard going to be 33rd. Jay Little brings it home 34th. 35th, Freddie Weaver. Joe Cacchetti going to be P36. 37th goes to John Casey. Jonathan Burt, 38. 39 goes to Eli Clough. Matthew Gazenda, P40. Running out the rest of the field, Brandon Smith, Jeff Andrus, Mike Pico, Scott Brooks, Kenneth Stepp, Tony Morano.
Tony Morano probably involved in that lap 1 incident as well. Ended up retiring the car, comes home in last position. He could be very happy to see Road Atlanta in his rearview mirror. But I can tell you one guy that's going to be happy. That's your winner, Jack Sanchez. Jack, another trip to victory lane. You finally got to put it on pole as well. The first thing I have to ask, though, were you expecting a 26th lap?
You got to do your homework.
So studying the track, getting ready for the race. Jack Sanchez not caught by surprise. Tell us about that little battle for the lead that we saw very early in the race that saw Matt Malone just skating across that inside curb in the last corner. Did you know he was there?
Not even a little bit, man. I saw Luis rolling in behind me, and I started to turn into the corner, and I'm like, why is there a car here? So I'm gonna have to go say sorry to him a little bit. I don't know how dirty it looked on the outside.
Well, I can tell you what, get your popcorn because it was quite a save. It was one of the best things I've seen in the league in the entire 8 seasons we've been doing it. But congratulations on the win today. So you did your homework, got the fuel strategy right. It was a hot track. It looked like you had the pit time lined up perfectly, and you came out with some lap traffic behind you as a little bit of a buffer. How hard were you trying to run away with it from there?
So yeah, I basically was naturally running fuel to a number there. I had to hit my target. So actually what was probably happening too to people is I'd been backing up the race the whole time, and I unleashed it, because I like to fuel the target. And from there, that probably messed up with some people's fuel calculations, and I just was able to push away. I don't know if you guys caught, I took left sides, and it doesn't appear that anyone else in the top 4 did.
No, nobody else in the top 4 looked like 2 tires, but a few other drivers did take tires, and we were wondering if it was going to work out or not, given that the tires kind of have a long warm-up period, but the track temperature probably helped them get up to temperature pretty quickly. What was that first lap like on new left side tires?
Yeah, you just have to be prepared and have practiced on it because it's a little bit wobbly with the mismatched pressures. But yeah, like you said, hot track, warms up the tires in about a lap and a half here. Yeah, worked out pretty well for me. I think Fabian ended up giving me a pretty good run for it until Malone came out of nowhere again at the end. But yeah, one mistake and then managed to hang on to it.
So yeah, that mistake. 3 laps to go. You get it a little bit wrong in turn 5. And did you wear your brown driving suit today?
No, yeah, I was trying to make sure I got that fastest lap in there, or was pushing for it, so I had to kind of stop doing that at that point.
Well, I'm pretty sure you still came away with it, but congratulations, dude. You got the pole position, you got the win. I think you got the fastest lap, and before we let you go celebrate all those, is anybody like to thank or shout out?
Yeah, just, it's got a good bunch of good drivers here, so it's always, keeping me on my toes, and it's a good hard league to race in. So yeah, it's just good to have some battles, Luis putting it to me in lap 1 there, making me work for it, trying to get it. So yeah, just good times.
Well, awesome. Congratulations once again, and I have a feeling we'll be talking to you again here sometime this season.
Right on. Yeah, have a good night.
That was your overall winner and your Pro Division winner, Jack Sanchez. And Andre, have you managed to track down Jeff Schnackle?
Yes, I have. Let's see if we can get him in the booth. Mr. Schnackle, you got a copy?
Yeah, how's it going, guys?
It's going pretty good. But it's going better for you. Yet another division win, Jeff. This track seemed to suit you pretty well. You didn't have a whole lot of competition for really the first time that you've got a division win. You didn't have a whole lot of challenge for it. You kind of just ran your race. It looked easy from up in the booth, but maybe you got a different story behind the wheel.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I had a little oopsie there on lap 4, I think it was. So after that, I was just kind of in between Dave Moore and Luke Sudengay. After that, just kind of ran my own race and just tried to hit my marks and bring it home for the division win.
Absolutely. Another great points day, and you seem to just be racking them up, extending your points lead. What is the focus going forward in the rest of the season here? Is it just going to be consistency and good points days, or is it going to be all-out aggression and trying to win, or maybe a little bit of both?
I think it'll definitely be a little bit of both. Long Beach and Mugello were not my weeks, so I've got to really push and not have any more screw ups the rest of the season, because I think I'll also be missing a week. So I've really got to try to go for those class wins, but at the same time also stay consistent and finish in the top 3 at least for division. So we'll see how it plays out.
Indeed, it will. Now, didn't quite affect you as much as the leaders, but we did get a bit of an unexpected 26th lap. The leaders had just barely made it to the line in time. Was the fuel ever a concern for you?
No, I took 4-1 and then clicked off early, so I think it ended up being like 3.6 gallons. And I also took left sides, just so I didn't have to worry about the tires towards the end of the race there. So it actually ended up working out perfect for me. I just was safe and took the extra fuel and just pushed the whole entire race.
Awesome. Well, before we let you go, is there any shout-outs you'd like to make?
Yeah, shout out to, I think it was Andrew who gave me the room and let me rejoin on lap 4, so I didn't murder anybody. That definitely would have been bad, so shout out to him for allowing me to do that.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, and hopefully we're talking to you again soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
All right. That is going to be the Challenger winner out of the booth, and now I believe that Mr. McGrew has caught up with our amateur winner, Dave Blair.
Dave Blair, 3 wins this season, and I gotta ask first things first here. We've heard it out of the other 2 winners. Did you take left side tires during the pit stop?
I did not take any tires.
That goes. So there goes the winning strategy. But you were still able to come home first. You had a pretty good race. Finished 25th overall after qualifying 23rd, and finishing in the top 25 in a field this size in a group this challenging has got to feel like a win by itself. But then you also bring home the honors for the amateur division. Seems like no looking back for you this season.
Yeah, I think so. I qualified really well this week, which is unexpected. Normally I don't qualify that well. So I have to give a shout out, to Frito Sport. I mean, they're a great group of guys, and somebody gave me a good setup.
Absolutely. You love to hear it. A good setup can get you a long way, or a good way to a fast lap time, but you actually got to be able to put one together. So don't sell yourself short here on that, Dave.
Well, I've been running the fixed setup the last couple of weeks, and so this is the first real setup that I've had.
Well, it seems to have helped you improve a lot. Tell us what the race was like out there. It seemed like you were dealing with a lot of traffic, and then suddenly you kind of found yourself in alone with a group of 3. What was that like?
Well, it was actually nice because I was running with Jay Little there for a long time, and he let me by, and then because he had a bad corner, and then I had a bad corner, I let him back by. But I was holding on to him until he pit early, and he let me know he was going in. But when I came out of the pit, I came out right behind him. Now, I did take a little extra fuel because I did not want any chance of losing it. So I was like, I'll take 1 more gallon of fuel. And I came out right behind him. And then he spun there towards the end, which is unfortunate. But him and I were running good pace.
Well, glad to see you in the winner's circle once again, Dave. I suspect we'll probably be talking to you again sometime this season. But before we let you celebrate, is there anybody you want to thank or shout out?
Yes, I want to shout out Luis Enriquez, because you guys left me in the interview room with him last week, and he gave me some pointers. So, when you have a chance to talk to the fast guys, you want to pick their brain about this car. And let's just say, he helped me a lot.
Well, awesome to hear, and glad you got to do that. And this community is really great for sharing data. I'm sure you're part of the Driver 61 or Garage 61 team. I know a lot of setups get shared that way. Have you used it much to help you improve either?
I am part of the Driver 61, but yeah, I do have some setups in there, but I don't really look at the data. I'm not one of those guys that does a deep dive. Usually I wait for somebody to say, I have a really good setup, and then I'll say, hey, will you share it with me? And they do. And again, that's the Frito Sport guys, great group of guys. The whole AMS community is fantastic. Again, anybody that needs help, all you gotta do is ask.
Well, congratulations once again on your 3rd win of the season, and hopefully we'll see you making a good charge for the amateur championship this season.
Yep. Thank you.
That was your amateur division winner, Dave Blair and Andre. What a race we had tonight. We saw it popping off the entire time, it seemed like. Any final thoughts from you on what we saw here tonight at Road Atlanta?
My final thoughts are that Matt Malone is going to be getting pretty desperate for a win. Obviously, he has been to victory lane, but he's got a lot of second places. I think if you stack them all up, if you count them up, Mr. Malone probably has the most second place finishes in this league, most of them coming to the same guy. So another frustrating week for him. I also need to point out David Finch. I said at the start of the broadcast, he races so well. His results have not shown how good he is. He ran out of fuel. He was half a lap short. He did not make that extra 26 lap. He fell back from 5th to 15th. So another disappointing finish, and just, man, oh man, Lady Luck not shining upon him.
Yeah, we're waiting for Dave Finch to put one together. We do have some upcoming broadcasts. I don't think that they're going to be showing on screen, unfortunately, but as always, Tuesday nights, tune in right here on Slow Motion Broadcasting for the American Muscle Series. Wednesdays, we have the Sim Racers Group and the Ray Esports leagues going on Wednesdays. Then the weekend is jam-packed with action. Saturdays, the Ray Esports Weekend Warriors Formula Vs will be taken to the track. Then on Sunday, we have 3 different races for you. The Weekend Warriors are going to show up in both the Formula Ford and the Spec Racer Ford. And then Sunday evening, the return of XSLR. They had their first race this past Sunday, and it was an absolute barn burner. They're going to be driving the 410 sprint cars for another 3 weeks in that league, and then they switch disciplines. They run all 4 disciplines in that league. So keep your eyes peeled for those. Keep your YouTube channel locked in here on Slow Motion Broadcast. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. That way you know every time Slow Motion Broadcasting goes live with more racing action. But for Andre Grandbouche, my name is Randall McGrew. We've been joined in the production trailer by Joshua Wilkie here for the coverage of American Muscle Series Season 8, Race 4 at Road Atlanta. And we'll see you again next week. Thank you. Good night.